That was December 21st, 2002 when we closed. About 12 hours later, my sister passed away. Instead of celebrating Christmas in this milestone, we were planning the funeral services for my youngest sister. One option, try and get out of it, try to rescind it, or two, continue her legacy. Fast forward 20 plus years later, we had about 110 employees and we were serving 200 plus clients between Pinellas and Hillsborough County.
Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, the local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And make sure you share this episode with a friend or colleague. I am your host, Owen LaFave, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. Today's episode is going to be truly something special. We're diving into the journey of entrepreneurship, leadership, and service with an incredible guest, someone who has not only built an empire in business, but also touched the lives of countless others through his work. My guest today is none other than Gary Hartfield, a Tampa-based award-winning serial entrepreneur, 2024 Businessman of the Year, speaker, author who's mastered the art of turning adversity into opportunity. We're going to talk about some of those books here in a minute.
Yes.
The founder of multiple businesses, truly a leader in the community. Like I said, a mentor of giving back. You have a new book out, The Journey to Success, a blueprint for winning in business and life, available at Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, and Stand, which was your original personal memoir, which published in 2025. Gary, welcome to Money Market.
Thank you. I look forward to this conversation with you.
So maybe, let's start at the beginning. You built an incredible career with multiple businesses, but where did it all start for you?
It started in a small town, Definiak Springs, Florida, here in the Panhandle,
okay.
Great state of Florida.
Now, how big is that? Because I've never heard of it. What's it near?
So it's near Destin.
Okay.
Sandestin area, same county, actually. So South County is Sandestin, where things are a little bit more expensive. In the north end of the county, Definiak Springs, the county is pretty rural in that area. And as a matter of fact, when I graduated in 1988, I was one of 144 students graduating in my graduating class. Yeah, right. Fairly small, great rural community. We did something really well. We practiced community really well. Mm-hmm. We also practiced football really well.
All right.
1985, we were the 2A state champions in football. Sports was an integral part of life. And
so what position did you play?
I played wide out, first string.
All right.
And I played quarterback, second string. Yeah, okay. I got pretty good hands. Probably my dad would always tell me, Owen, I played like I was scared. But so the idea was
probably better be on offense then, right? Because you're running away from somebody versus defense.
Absolutely. So on offense, when I touch the ball, the first thing I'm thinking is score.
Yeah.
But also, I didn't want to get hit, so I turned on the jets. As soon as I caught the ball, I turned on the jets. The thing we will always do, and this is probably familiar with most athletes as far as football, the first thing you want to do is hit someone to get the jitters off. So as a wide receiver, I would naturally, whether the ball was coming to me or not, usually first play of the game, you don't get a pass. So you go out and block. So whether it was coming to my side or not, I would go out and hit someone. And the idea was just to get the jitters off.
I used to have a coach that, same kind of, you don't know what to do, hit somebody. Like, when in doubt, knock them out.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. So you get it. You get it. But yeah, small town, very rural community. My parents were very instrumental in the community, very involved. And my father had a small entrepreneurial business. Most of the time, my friends would see me in passing either on someone's hill mowing a yard, or raking a yard, or cleaning a building. So my entrepreneurial mindset was actually driven. Did your dad
have a landscaping company? Or
landscaping. So it was landscaping and janitorial.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you worked for Dad?
I worked for Dad. Now, the amazing thing was I never got paid. So
it's not a good bargain.
Right. The conversation was, well, son.
Good for your dad.
Yeah, I know,
Free labor.
The idea was every time you pull your feet up under that table, right, I'm paying you. Every time I buy clothes, every time, I provide for you, I'm paying you. So Probably not the best business model, because as I would look for my friends to help me in the community, when they saw my dad's truck, you could see them.
Did they go the other way?
Yeah, they would definitely disperse. So it was funny. We laugh about it now, but yeah, that was an amazing time. Just growing up, good friends, good people.
Did you appreciate at that time? I was telling my son a story about one of my, not to get too far off base, but I had one of my good friends. His parents were from New York.
Yeah.
And just we were talking about colds, and he would say, "You got the virus."
Yeah.
And then which led us down this rabbit hole of all just these crazy stories, which in the moment we were like, Dad was crazy.
Yeah.
But now we laugh at it and think like, this is great. But
yeah.
in the moment, we were like, his dad is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you appreciate it growing up and at the time, or is it reflection looking back and say,
reflection? I think more so at that time, as you're 15, 16, 17 years old. And after football on Friday, I get up, I'm sore on Saturday. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to go out with my dad. So it wasn't necessarily a great time for me, but what it taught me was work ethic.
Sure.
Right? And a can-do attitude. So there was, as I began to journey into my professional career in entrepreneurship, I bring that same work ethic to the table. So my father taught me how to be a great provider for his family, for my family. But in addition to that, he taught me work ethic and a real can-do attitude.
Now, you had a really strong mom too, right?
Yes. So mom's role was, she was actually the stronger of the two.
Okay.
In the relationship. So as I look back in retrospect and you think about, okay, who was kind of the stronger parent, right? My mom was the stronger of the two, but she was a silent strong in that when she spoke, everyone listened, right? In addition to that, her spiritual influence was pivotal in my life and for the life of my siblings. Her influence helped us endure tough times. It gave us a reference point. Gave us a source, a foundation to draw from as tough times come, And in life, that's just an integral part of it. You're not going to escape it. No matter if you're born into wealth or if you're born into poverty, life shows up every day. So I think my mother's influence and being a strong spiritual influencer, that's my foundation.
I know you have 2 kids, right?
I have 3, actually.
3 kids.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right, what are their ages?
My oldest is 36.
Okay.
My next is 23. She's a bull.
All right, go Bulls.
She's at the University of South Florida. She's a grad student now.
Congratulations.
She was a part of this volleyball team that made historic strides
That's
this
amazing.
year.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So she's a starting middle.
Incredible.
And my youngest son, Garrett, he's 13. And he is an aspiring student athlete as well.
Love that. What does he play?
So he plays everything. I am a true Uber dad so he plays football, baseball, soccer. They're doing track now.
Okay.
And
so he has your speed?
Maybe. I think he may be faster because he's slim and long, right? So I think he may have maybe the effect of a Usain Bolt. I think he may have that type of ability if we work with it.
All right.
Yeah.
So I love trying everything. I did the same thing with my boys too, and ironically, so I grew up playing ice hockey.
Wow.
And played up until 4 years ago, and that was the last thing we tried.
Yeah.
It actually wasn't even on we live in Florida. Right?
Yeah.
We're playing a ball sport. We're doing soccer, football, baseball. Hockey wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
And that was the one that he chose. So I've been coaching him for 11 years. So it's been fun.
I love it. I love it.
That spiritual upbringing that you had talked about.
Yes.
Is that something you've instilled in your kids too? Have they embraced it? Do they push back on it at all?
No. So what I find with my kids, and even with relationships that are adult relationships where maybe I'm mentoring someone or maybe someone's watching and I just don't know, right? It's the action that always counts, right?
So serve by example.
Yeah, serve by example, right? So it could be even in the workplace where I'm asking someone to clean restrooms or maybe write a policy to call someone in lieu of that person having to endure accord forms and try and figure out how far they are from a fire extinguisher. I asked staff, I asked the producer to walk through that process with them. So they've seen me do it.
Okay.
So we lead by example. And I think that's probably the most important part, especially in spiritual life. So many times in just common community, some of our ministerial or spiritual leaders have fallen short. And we have to give grace there.
Sure.
So it's important to understand that we're all human and we fall short. But I think more importantly, that we lead by example. An example would be my daughter asked if her boyfriend that she's dating now, which is tough for me.
All dads, I get it.
If he could come and stay here in Tampa with us for a month or so as he prepares to try and play football at the next level and as a professional athlete. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? I cannot be an example to you. I cannot be an example to anyone if I'm not giving this young man a chance to maybe work for me or work with me, or I help him find a job while he's here preparing to make a little extra money, but also to try and live out his dream. So that was a very tough decision because now I'm inviting someone in my home and I'm helping to provide support for him. But I think if I'm talking about being a Christian, I'm talking about being a leader, if I'm talking about pouring into young men and young women, how do I do that? And I think the best way that we do that is we do that by example.
So since we're talking about leadership, let's get into it. So what are some other principles of leadership that you live by?
I think leadership is very simple, right? The one thing that I really resort to is the quote by this couple. And it's probably a couple that is world-renowned. The first one, the masculine figure in this couple, he talked about this idea of being the man in the arena. So for me...
Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt, yes, sir.
It's a great quote.
Yep.
Actually we have wall art in our living room.
Yes.
His quote. So
I love it.
It's
absolutely
every day.
So yeah, just being the man. That's leadership, right? Where
putting yourself out there.
We put ourselves out there and we try and make a difference. Now, if we fall short with those few that's actually trying, that are the men and the women in the arena. But at least we tried, right? And the feminine part of that came from his wife, Eleanor. And she said, don't ask someone to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. That's what leadership is to me. Those two quotes by that couple that have, transcended time as well as history, and they made an impact on me and my life, how I lead and how I try and show up in the community.
Certainly me too. You have to get in the fight.
Yeah.
Get in the game. Maybe talk about redemption a little bit. I know I'm going off, but we live in a society today where it's very unforgiving.
Yeah.
Especially you had mentioned spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
We're fallible, right? We're all human. We make mistakes, and we're so quick to judge.
Yes.
What does the road to redemption look like? How should, in an ideal world, how should we treat a situation like that?
No, that's a great question. And again, I think it doesn't have to be an esoteric, profound answer that I pull from Ethiopian or Egyptian or Greek philosophy.
If you got some.
Yeah. But the idea is spiritual, is that that we judge others by the same measure that we want to be judged by.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very simple. So if I choose to judge someone, if they fell short, and we inevitably all do, right? If I choose to judge him or her by that measure, then know that I'll be measured and judged by that same measure. So just keeping that in the forefront and allowing each other grace and thinking through how we judge each other, how we support each other when we fall short. Just a phone call or an email or something that lets people know that, I'm supporting you and however you need me to show up. If you need me to come and support you, you want to grab coffee or whatever that looks like, just know that I'm not here to judge. I want to support you, and I understand that we all fall short.
Yeah, we need a lot more of that in the world. So thank
I
you,
agree.
thank you, Gary.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How does an engineer become a operator of a group home and assisted living facility?
Wow, great question. So what happened was my parents chose to live vicariously through me. Neither one of them had graduated from high school when I was getting ready to transition from secondary to post-secondary. So as we sat down in the living room and we talked about next steps for me, the military was an option. And also, I wanted to be a doctor in psychology.
Okay.
I wanted to work with human beings. I wanted to talk about and explore human growth and development. I wanted to understand better why do we evolve?
Just like all engineers.
Yeah,
right?
I know, right? Totally.
You're not sounding like an engineer right now.
Not at all, not at all. And it's amazing because I still hold true to those kind of ideas and philosophy in my natural being. So as a technical or physical scientist, as an engineer, have great analytical skills, but I'm probably best described as a social engineer.
Okay.
So
I like that.
As we talked about what was next for me, and I said, Mom, Dad, I want to be a psychologist. I know I need to go and get my PhD and to be successful in this career. I'm thinking writing books, writing papers, lecturing, and kind of leading this class because that's how I was brought up. I was brought up to be a leader, whether it was on the football field or in the classroom or raking yards or mowing yards or cleaning bathrooms. I was taught to lead. So as we had that conversation, my parents thought, well, there's no money in that. And they loved the idea of having a son that was an engineer. Now, earlier we talked about the fact that I'm from a small town. So usually in larger areas, larger towns, larger counties, there's international baccalaureate, there's honors, there's IB, there's a lot of things that support students as they get ready to transition from secondary to post-secondary.
Right.
So you're able to take Algebra 2, Trig, Calculus, even Cal 2. I've known some students that have taken up to Calculus 2 before transitioning to undergrad. For me, the highest level of math that was offered was Algebra 2 with Trig in our small town.
All right.
So when I transitioned into post-secondary at Florida A&M, and calculus was my first math class, I was like, whoa, this is a different language, right?
That's, punch in the mouth.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So I'm trying to figure this whole thing out, right? And again, I'm a social scientist at best, right? And I want to be an individual that works with individuals and human growth and development, all those things that relates to social science. And I'm trying to figure out technical and physical science. So I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
So I had to struggle through it. And once I completed that degree, after I flunked out a couple times, I gave the
But
degree.
You got in the arena and you got back in.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. I was the man in the arena. And again, that kind of fortified that, right? But as I completed that degree, I walked across the stage and passed my mom the diploma, the degree, and I've never used it. I have never used it. Now, there's parts of the learning and the curriculum that I was really good at. But because of the trials and the tribulations of earning the degree, I've never used it. I use it in terms of analytical skills. I use it in my ability to kind of think differently and think outside of the box. But I've never used the degree in terms of a profession.
It is a unique way of thinking. And when I think of various disciplines, I very much admire and appreciate the legal mind.
Yes.
And how different that thought process is, as well as an engineer.
Yes.
So I have a son that has that wiring. He wants to be a chemical engineer, and just admire it. It's a different way. When I see the way he processes things, it's different than the way I process things. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. My son actually wants to be an engineer, and he processes like an engineer.
Okay.
He is very deliberate and intentional in his thought. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll support him if he wants to be an engineer. In fact, none of my kids picked up that physical science.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest daughter, she's an educator. The daughter that's at the University of South Florida playing volleyball, she wants to be a medical doctor. And I believe Garrett, my son, I believe he'll be an engineer, probably an aeronautical engineer.
Okay.
He loves airplanes. So we'll see how it plays out for him.
That's exciting. You get him flying yet?
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we travel to support his sister, he's right there over the wing with the shade pulled up, making sure that he's watching the wing and how it expands and it contracts. And so we talk a little bit about the physics of what's going on when you fly.
Incredible. No.
Yeah.
So Serenity Village.
Yes, Serenity Village.
How do we get there from the engineering degree?
So from the engineering degree, I'm in corporate America. I had completed a master's in business administration. I thought the MBA would give me more options.
Not a bad thought.
Yeah.
It does many times.
Absolutely. Engineering degrees, really technical. And most of the time, when you're having a conversation with a potential employer, they're thinking, wow, you're pretty smart, right, to complete an engineering degree. If nothing else, that's kind of an assumption that's made.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's very technical, right? Very specific. So your ability to secure options of employment is limited. So that being said, I went back.
Got the MBA.
Yeah.
Now you got the business piece.
Got the business
Look,
piece.
I'm smart. I can finish an engineering degree.
Absolutely.
And I'm technical.
Yes.
Now I have business acumen.
Absolutely. So I'm working in corporate America. I'm living my best life, and I'm thinking, okay, this thing is working out. And my parents are admonishing me, Gary, we want you to find a good job and stay there, right? So I'm trying to fit inside of this box.
But you had a good job.
I had a good job.
Okay, but they didn't like that job.
Well, the idea was they wanted me to stay at one particular job for 30 plus years because that was the model they knew.
Yeah,
right?
Get your pension, retire.
Yeah, get your pension,
get your gold
retire.
watch.
There you go. Absolutely. So I'm thinking, wow, I'm trying to do this because these are the individuals that have poured into me all my life, and I know they wouldn't tell me anything wrong, Owen. They love me, right?
Right.
But their view and their vision for life was limited based on their experience and exposure.
Sure.
For
and how
me,
often many of us, we want to make our parents happy.
Absolutely.
So we try to fulfill their dreams and make it happy, but
yeah.
But you decided, I love you all, but I'm taking a different path.
Yeah. So, and it was actually not as intentional as I thought, right? So we were having a conversation about getting a good job and staying there. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be tough for me, right? And we continue on, and I'm doing well. I'm in corporate. I'm between Chicago and New York. I was working with TMP Monster. At that time, they were an online job board, 7th largest advertising and marketing firm in the world. So I'm
company.
VP of Business Development for the Southeast United States.
Great job.
Yeah, great job. And I'm still thinking something's not right. And for me, it was that speck of sand, that speck of dirt in my shell, in me being an oyster. And it's interrupting and it's irritating me because I couldn't sleep at night. I knew that there was something more. I didn't know how to get there. I had never seen it revealed. I have never seen it lived out. My dad wasn't able to develop a business and scale it where you pick it up and you look at kind of a roadmap, right? So I said, okay, let me continue to work through this and do well. And at that time, I was married, and we were working through building our family. So as we're getting ready to transition into a potential new opportunity in New York or Chicago, my youngest sister called, and she said, baby, I want to start an assisted living facility. So I started doing the research, had recently finished my MBA. And I said, okay, let's, do the business plan and think through how this may work for us. Again, it's giving me an idea, it's giving me an option in terms of what an entrepreneurial endeavor may look like. So I did the research, and I said assisted living here in the state of Florida is a very good market in terms of market possibility. And in Pinellas County, it was huge. So She lived at
it was God's waiting room for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So she lived in St. Petersburg, and she worked at the Columbia when it was there at the pier.
Oh.
So we were having this conversation, working on the business plan. I'm doing the research. It makes sense. The bank that I was working with, the Bank of Destin.
Okay.
At the time, I presented the business plan. They pulled our credit, and they said, "You know what? This works. This is a very strong business plan. We're going to need $500,000 to get this started." They said, "We'll do it. You're going to have to bring 20% to the table," which equated to about $100,000. So I was able to garner about $50,000. I need another $50,000 to build a new facility in our hometown and start this initiative. And I fell short. I couldn't raise the other 50. Again, my sister was a waitress at the Columbia, so she didn't have $50,000 laying around. So it was on me to get the money to inject into the project. I couldn't raise it. So we looked at existing facilities in Pinellas County, found one in Seminole, Florida, 8-bed facility with 1.5 employees. We bought that for $200,000.
All right.
That was December 21st, 2002 when we closed. About 12 hours later, my sister passed away. She had taken an overdose of Oxycontin.
Yeah.
So again, I'm between Chicago and New York. I'm in corporate, and I'm thinking I'm going to strategically manage this.
It's Christmas.
And we're trying to figure out what's next, right? My youngest sister has now passed away.
You own this business?
And I
that she
own
was
this
going to
business. Yeah, that she was going to run. So do we try and rescind the offer, or what's our next step? So what we did is actually part of our legacy. And as we talked around Christmas, around the dinner table, instead of celebrating Christmas in this milestone, we were planning the funeral services for my youngest sister. So the idea was either one option, try and get out of it, try to rescind it, or two, continue her legacy. Fast forward 20 plus years later, as we grew to the height of the company before I sold part of it in 2019, we had about 110 employees, and we were serving 200 plus clients between Pinellas and Hillsborough County.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough business.
It is. It absolutely is.
So how did you approach the scaling process? I mean, can you tell us about that growth story?
Yeah. So we approached it based on two primary aspects of business. There's compliance, and then there's growth, right? So as we looked at compliance as it relates to anything healthcare related here in the state of Florida, as you can imagine, it's very strict. So we wanted to make sure from a compliance standpoint that we were 100% golden.
Yeah, so important. Yeah.
Absolutely, because the state of Florida, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, they will literally put you out of business.
Not forgiving. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, highly scrutinized.
Yeah. So you want to make sure from a compliance standpoint that you are in compliance. Now, the second part of that is being in compliance also helps you to mitigate risk. So as you know, Florida is a very litigious state. So if you're able to make sure that your clients are served well, that your community and your staff are served well, then you're able to avoid potential lawsuits. You're able to avoid potential legal jeopardy. Now, it's going to come no matter what.
Yeah.
That's just a part of doing business. But if you're able to maintain compliance at a high level, you're able to avoid even frivolous claims. So that being said, that was the first part. Scaling it now took, one, a little bit of luck, to developing relationships that look like social capital. And those relationships honestly started here at the Bank of Tampa. Melissa Berman and I had a conversation about a facility in Clearwater, Florida. And at that time, the owner of that facility was facing some legal issues as well as financial issues. We were able to acquire that facility and started the relationship with the Bank of Tampa. And since that time, we've grown in that relationship. That initial investment looked like about $300,000. Since then, we've probably invested $2 to $3 million in terms of opportunities and business growth with the Bank of Tampa.
We're grateful for that, by the way. Thank
you. Absolutely. No, it was certainly a partnership. But we scaled because we had social capital. That was an integral part of our growth process. In addition, Oscar Horton. I had a conversation with Oscar as we were preparing to buy and secure our corporate headquarters over in Pinellas. And
not many better business minds than Oscar. So.
I know, right? So we had a conversation about it. And I was looking at $1.2 million investment. It was a great steal. 22,000 square foot building that would house our corporate headquarters, our adult day training center, and a tenant that literally that would pay our mortgage. That tenant,
great investment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So 22,000 square foot footprint, truly a city block in terms of the parking and the footprint of the building for $1.2 million in 2018. We put about $180,000 into renovations, and that building's worth north of $3 million today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Good. Nice investment.
Yes.
So, but then you pivot to insurance?
Pivoted to insurance.
How did that come about? I mean, were you looking for another opportunity? Is that something that just fell in your lap, or did you see that there was some gap in the market that you thought you could fill?
No, it was vertical integration.
Okay.
Gap in the market, absolutely. Here's a great opportunity. The thing about insurance for us was that
also another tough business.
Yeah,
you like tough businesses, Gary.
well, the idea, Owen, is that we were able to start businesses that were not elastic with the economy. So that's been my business model. That's been the secret sauce.
Okay.
Assisted living, providing group homes for the intellectually and developmentally disabled. They're inelastic with the economy.
Sure.
So residential settings, community support, even during a global pandemic, those existing services have to stay in place, right? In insurance, whether it's a global pandemic, it's a Cat 5 hurricane, you got to have insurance. You got to make sure workers' comp is in place. You got to make sure you have property insurance. So the idea was to develop businesses that were inelastic with the economy. So I served on a statewide steering committee with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Part of our agreement that we signed to provide services here in the state of Florida, mandated in that agreement, says that you have to have liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It was although mandated, it was never enforced.
Oh, no kidding.
Never enforced.
Wow, that's shocking.
Absolutely. So in 2012, the mandate was now going to be enforced. And I'm sitting at the table. I understand the idea of liability insurance. I understand the need to, not only be compliant in your business, but scale it with social capital. So here we are talking about compliance. So I get out in front of it. I take the 220 license. It's a 9-month, 3-month process, 90 days. Take the test, pass it, open my shingle 1st of January of 2013.
All right.
Started marketing throughout the state of Florida to all the providers, assisted living facilities, group home owners, any residential setting that's licensed by ACA or the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Here's what liability insurance is. Here's the difference between general liability and professional liability. So I approached it as a consultant, not as a salesman, as someone that's in the arena with you, as someone that is not just preaching to you, but is actually walking this experience with you. I'm an owner-operator myself, right? So as we talk about
Can relate. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. So the sale wasn't necessary. I was consulting. And this is how I do it in my business. Here's what I recommend for you. You're serving 200 plus clients. You're generating $10 million a year. Why would you jeopardize your business because of a $5,000 premium that we can, finance and stretch out over 12 months, and it looks like maybe, $300 or $400 a month? Why would you jeopardize your business? So we'd have that conversation and start to pour into and consult with providers and owners and administrators around the state of Florida. And the business grew exponentially overnight. I would literally be writing policies to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That work ethic coming back.
Work ethic coming back. Absolutely. It just keeps showing up.
So we've had a lot of conversations about like in insurance, and I know we're talking about liability insurance and not property and casualty, although I know you're in that area too. But
Yes.
I mean, if you were an insurance czar for the day,
Yes.
having your background, like what would you change? Like what can we do in Florida to make it a better environment?
So, I mean, there's a lot of concerns here in Florida, right? So the first thing we'll talk about is affordability. So the issue of affordability as it relates to housing is a dual issue, if not a tripartite issue. So if you're talking about housing affordability for personal and or commercial, an integral part of that is the ability, number one, to service the debt. Mm-hmm. Do you have the credit? Do you have the collateral to afford it? Now, in addition to that, insurance has gone up 400%. Mm-hmm. So now, as you look at escrow payment in your personal or in a commercial investment, can you afford the insurance on this risk? So what would have normally been a $4,000 mortgage and debt that needed to be serviced now looks like $7,000 or $8,000. In addition, the third part, high interest rates, is significantly higher than what we were accustomed to a couple of years ago, right?
No, I mean, we had 15 years of low interest rates.
Absolutely.
So it's been a big adjustment.
Absolutely. So now affordability is really exacerbated here in the Tampa Bay area in the state of Florida because of insurance and interest rates, right? So insurance plays a huge factor in how we look at affordability now. Now, that's the first part of it. So as we have major catastrophes here in Florida, and part of the conversation has been about fraudulent claims.
Yeah.
And
there was some legislation to try to
mitigate that, right? So I don't know how far that legislation have gone because in terms of helping to resolve and relieve that issue because not interest rate, but insurance premiums still go up. Yeah. So I see it in auto, personal auto, commercial auto.
I have 4 teenagers. I know that well.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. To the point where it's almost at the point where you can't afford to allow your son or daughter to drive the vehicle because the insurance premium is so high that it's not affordable, right?
It's outrageous, yeah.
So now the other side of that, getting back to just the business standpoint, as insurance plays into that. So reinsurance, so just so that people understand, reinsurance is basically insurance for the insurance carriers, where think of it as I have a $100 million book of business. And if there's a major catastrophe, I may need to pay $1 billion in claims. So I'll sell part of that book of business to reinsurers to mitigate my risk and make sure, from a business standpoint, they have the ability to capitalize off of this book if things go well, if we manage risk well. But if there's 2 Cat 4 hurricanes within 13 days, along with flooding and all the other issues that come along with catastrophes, major catastrophes, and there's $100 billion in claims, then my ability as an insurer and or a reinsurer to stay in this market is greatly compromised.
Right.
So we see those insurers that do not have the financial wherewithal leaving the state of Florida or filing bankruptcy. Now, if I'm a business owner and I'm working in or own reinsurance companies, then the idea of staying in Florida doesn't look too profitable.
Yep.
So I either have to increase premiums, I have to pass that risk on to...
They're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's happening.
So I have to increase your premium or I have to leave the state. So we know that Citizens is not an option. Citizens was never built to be the insurance provider for the state of Florida. In fact, it places...
it's insurer of last resort, right?
It's the insurer of last resort. But in addition to that, what happens when Citizen takes on an overwhelming burden as it relates to premium and exposure is that it compromises the state of Florida in its solvency.
Yeah.
So we have about, in the state, we have about $15 to $20 billion in reserves. Now, I just shared with you there was $100 billion in losses. Imagine the state of Florida having $100 billion in losses, a huge amount of exposure with citizens, and now the state of Florida or citizens has to pay up.
Mm-hmm.
So state of Florida now, because it is supporting the citizens, the insurer of last resort, if we don't have the ability, if we don't have the solvency to pay those claims, guess what? The state has to file bankruptcy. And who comes to the rescue of the state? The federal government. So I'm aware maybe, right? So I'm aware that the U.S. Senate was doing an investigation into the insurance market here in the state of Florida and citizens to make sure that there's solvency there. So it's important that we understand that the implications of the insurance market here in the state of Florida are huge, and that affordability, as we talk about affordability here in the Tampa Bay area and indeed in the state, it's not just a singular issue.
Yeah.
It's prices, it's insurance, and it's interest rates.
Yeah.
So, and know that reinsurance is an integral part of that. So it's a complicated issue. It's not anything that we have a silver bullet that we can fire at and just, make it better. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some leadership on that issue to get things back to where they are, quote unquote, affordable.
And I wouldn't be surprised at some point in time, and I don't know what the breaking point is, but the market probably resets in terms of values, right?
Yes.
Because you talk about that affordability and all these factors. At some point in time, it's just there will be a breaking point.
Yes.
The values will come down to kind of compensate. And,
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting. Before we go, I want to talk about your book.
Yes.
So the new book. Tell us about it. What inspired you to write this book?
So what inspired me to write the book on a dear friend, her name is Valerie Goddard. She'd given me a book a few years ago, and on the cover of the book was the title, The Journey to Success. And when I opened the book, all the pages were blank.
Oh, okay.
Except for the first page.
You get to write the book.
Yes.
What was on the first page?
On the first page, she had written me this very special note that as you're presenting, as you're speaking, as you're pouring into others, you're telling people about your journey to success. You have to capture it in writing so that this story is told way beyond you. And that when you're not able to be in Washington, D.C. or California or Texas or New York, and an individual needs inspiration, that they can pick up this book and understand the journey to success and what it looked like for you, because you have an inspiring story. So as I read that, I said, wow, what motivation, right? To actually write the book. Now,
challenge accepted, huh?
Challenge accepted. Right. Here's one of the things that I would share with you, Owen. One of the hardest things that I've ever done is write a book.
I believe, it is no small task.
It is. Yeah. It's no small
Great accomplishment. Yeah.
So what's so difficult about it is that you don't understand what you know, or that what you don't know until you have to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
So having to not only share about the concept of resiliency and how my sister's death, untimely death, affected me. So that's a sentence, maybe a paragraph, Owen. But how do I make that into a real story that I can share, that resonates with you, that empowers you based on my story to create your own story and complete your journey to success? That's one of the hardest things in the world to do. So with the help of coaches and writing coaches and a team, it definitely helps you get there, but probably one of the most difficult things that I've had.
How long did it take?
The first book, Stand, took 5 years.
Wow. All right.
The second one, The Journey to Success, it took a little over a year to get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess having gone through the process once, what did you do differently for this book?
So the initial process, because you don't know what you don't know going into it, you're thinking every time that you write, it has to be perfect.
Oh, yeah. No, just get it on paper.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. And that's what my writing coach would share. Just get it out, And then after we got it out, then we could go back and edit it. And we developed the constructs. There were 3 pillars in this book, The Journey to Success, and my first book, Stand. We wanted to empower, motivate, and inspire. So how do we do that? So everything that we wrote had to speak on each one of those pillars. And if it didn't do that, it couldn't be in the book. It's great for you to get it out because it's cathartic, it's therapeutic, but it will not be in the final manuscript for the book.
Got it.
So the second book, understanding that, just get it out. And then we go back and proof it and make sure it fits within the pillars. It was a lot easier.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the journey to success, a blueprint for winning in business and life. Gary, if people want to find you, where do they find you at?
So I am available on all social media platforms, just simply Gary Hartfield, at Gary Hartfield. Also, my website is garyhartfield.com. It's very simple.
You're easy to find.
Easy to find. So, yeah.
Well, Gary, thanks for coming on Money Market.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
No, I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you have a question or future show idea or would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and on Instagram at bankoftampa.com and online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the Money Market.